Facebook, and then I can share this, and people can connect. Why don't we do this? Hey, Facebook Live, hope you are doing well. And this is what it looks like. Here we go. I am actually reaching out to Dara Padwo-Audick, who is right here with me, and I'm going to see if we can't just, yeah, we go. I'm going to add the friend, and then when she accepts my friend request, then we can do this live to all of her friends and share this and tag her. Claire, you're in the green room. Have you reached out to me on Facebook? You give me a yes or a no, thumbs up, thumbs down on that. You have? Okay. So what I can do right now, this makes for a little bit of a weird intro, but I am just, you work fast. That is good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mosey over to my page where this is going live for the delight of everybody. I'm going to live tag. Come on. I'm going to live tag both Dara and Claire so that everyone can help us defeat the evil Facebook algorithm, which seeks to limit the spreading of these great, amazing ideas. So we're going to defeat that.
So cool.
Right now, yeah. Okay, so
it's probably a little delayed, but that's all right.
A little bit, yeah, and that's okay. Here we go. And boom, I've tagged both of you. And now what you can both do is you can actually share this right now and spread it in real time. And then what we get is then we'll have more people viewing and connecting. I can see my friend Ricky is watching and fellow Talk alumni. Thank you for the little love sign there, my friend Ricky, who's having an amazing digital nomad virtual summit all week long, which actually he has graciously invited yours truly to talk about giving TED Talks and applying to TED Talks as you are nomading as a digital nomad all around the world. So that is going to be awesome. And I got to say, Ricky was the first person in our Get Accepted secret beta course who actually did get accepted. It freaked me out a little bit because he got accepted on day number 1 of the course. So I was expecting good results. I wasn't expecting results like that. And so it has been a pretty amazing journey and a pretty wild ride. So Dara, are you kind of ready to go right now? I know I sent you over to Facebook to do all kinds of jumping through hoops and whatnot. And hopefully Claire's done everything on her end as well, which is why we have a pretty good number of people watching.
I'm trying to share it. It's very slow, but
it is slow.
Yeah, I'm going to come back.
It is slow. No, share it now. I mean, we'll take the extra time for you to share it because it's just going to mean that much more for your engagement and your people and everyone else. And as you are trying to share that, I'm going to recap. Earlier today, I think we had 8 interviews in the 8:30 a.m. and the 10 o'clock a.m. 3-hour segment, and 7 of the 8 people were able to make it, which is a really good number. Where there's always some kind of tech issue or some kind of rescheduling or just a flat out emergency. So you want to check out those amazing interviews from this morning. I am just really amazed by the high caliber of guests. And I really shouldn't be amazed because not everybody gets to give TEDx talks, whether you are accepted because of your own persistence or whether you are just simply invited because you're making impactful things all over the world. Now we have a comment here. This is going to be meta. Watch this. So Dara, who is co-hosting this here with me as my guest, says the opportunity, appreciate the opportunity to be on the show. Now that's the first time somebody's done that in the middle of their interview, Dara. Well played.
I strive to be unique.
Well played, my friend. All right. Well, this is awesome. Well, we are any questions for me before I actually hit the recorder button here?
I'm still trying to share. I'm going to go back here.
Oh, it's not sharing. So you commented. You commented. But I assume since you commented that the sharing part was done.
It's just, I don't know why it's so slow, but
it is sluggish.
Yeah, it's very sluggish. I'm trying to figure.
You know what? I mean, if you like, you can drop out here, share it, and then log back in, and I'll just jump over to Claire, and then we'll get back to you in 15 minutes or so, if you want to do that, or we can just wait for another another 20 seconds here. On Facebook is pretty slow about these things, but it's usually will get out of the way and let us do things that we need to do here.
Whatever you think is best. I'm trying to think of what else I could shut down, but I don't know that that's gonna do anything.
Yeah, you know what? Let's do this. Why don't you exit this Be Live?
Okay.
Share the live broadcast. I'll get started with Claire, and then we'll come back to you, and then you'll just be in the green room watching.
All right, sounds fine.
All right. Hey, folks, Talk Universe, that's why this is so important. We got to share this, and we've got to expand and extend what we are doing. And it really is so important, because if we don't share, if you don't share, if I don't share, if Claire doesn't share, if Dara doesn't share, then not as many people get to see what we are doing right here, right now. And it really is important that we all see this. And I'm just playing around with my ring light, because I would like for this to be a little bit brighter here. I think either the ring light is way too bright. Maybe the ring light is too bright, and I just look different right there. I am not really sure, but we've got Claire. Claire, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. How are you doing?
Very good. So now what I'm going to ask Claire to do, if you can reach on your laptop and just kind of pull the lid of your laptop towards you just a little bit so that you grow taller. Excellent. All right. And we can even go a little taller. There you go. Little bit more. There you go.
How's that?
That's great.
That good?
That's great.
Excellent. Good.
All right. So do you have any questions for me? We gotta go through your bio here. Let's see here. So it's Claire Ashman, 4-time TEDx speaker and cult survivor. Not once but twice, Claire has shared her hard-won inner wisdom with audiences all over the world. Claire's deep psychological awareness shines through her writing and her speaking, and it's claireashman.com. Let's see here. And all right, so you spoke at TEDx 4 times and survived not once but 2 cults. Is that what that means? Just so that I understand correctly, which is very unusual. I'm not meaning to chuckle. That's just I'm chuckling at that's unusual. We talk about unusual things in the most sensitive possible way here on Be the Talk podcast, and sometimes I just need to confirm things while we are on Facebook Live. So this is going to be great. I can't wait. Do you have any questions for me before we jump in here, Claire?
No, just jump right in and ask away.
Well, we're going to do that. Well, we will do that in 3, 2. We are live with Claire Ashman. Claire, are you ready to talk?
Absolutely. Any time of the day.
4-time TEDx speaker and cult survivor, not once but twice, Claire Ashman has shared her hard-won inner wisdom with audiences all over the world. Claire's deep psychological awareness shines through her writing and speaking. Claire Ashman, welcome to the talk.
Thank you for having me.
Well, your talk, the one that I most recently viewed, is called Lessons from a Cult Survivor. Pretty plain right there. You mentioned a few really neat things in your talk. You basically mentioned that we have a void in our lives, and some more than others. And for some people, not other people fill that void with their love and their listening and their valuing of others, but actually cults fill that void for some people. But we can choose to care about other people and value other people so that those other cults do not have to fill the void. That's basically my summary of your talk, Claire. Please take us behind that talk as well as any of the other talks that you've done.
Well, it is true in that, like for me personally, I was actually brought up in a sect, a very strict religious sect, and I was very isolated and insular, being homeschooled and without any kind of media or outside influence. And then I married due to that, and being socially backward, socially naive, I married young to a guy who was much older than me. And unbeknownst,
inside of the cult or elsewhere.
Well, he was part of that sect that I'd grown up in.
Okay.
And then, unbeknownst to me, he believed in end of world theories. And so this happens a lot in these groups, in that people are seeking. So my ex-husband was seeking for like answers to the end of the world and what was supposedly going to happen. And he was seeking for a group whereby he could feel like family, because in his mind, and bear in mind, my ex-husband had some mental health issues, which I found out much later on. But he was seeking for a group that all believed the same, did the same, dressed the same, thought the same. And he felt, for him, it cushioned him and it made him feel safe. Now, it was a similar thing for my mother, with her being part of the sect that I grew up in. She felt that same comfort as well. Oftentimes you find that in these groups, the people that join, they're looking for that. They're just looking for someone, they're looking for that love. They're looking for that cushion just to keep them safe.
Well, and we're all tribal people. So
yeah,
this is just maybe a few notches more extreme than most of us normally, whoever you're following on the internet or whoever's podcast. I mean, all of that. This isn't as far gone perhaps as we would think, because we're all tribal. We're all looking for a place to belong. Some of us have a harder time belonging than others, and then these doors can open up and sometimes go into not good places. So don't mean to interject that, but please go on.
That's definitely true. So for me, basically, it was, I was part of the actual cult for like 10 years, and then it was me that ended up by cracking it open, in that I started writing letters, and I mentioned this in my third TEDx talk at Norwich, how I started writing letters and challenging the cult leader's authority, and he didn't like that, and so we ended up over time that brought about a series of events whereby we got evicted by the local sheriff. And I don't want anybody going, oh my God, you got evicted, how terrible was that? It was actually the best thing that happened, and my kids and I were so happy about it.
Claire, if I can just establish a little bit of a timeline. So you mentioned that you were brought up in a cult. You mentioned a period of 10 years, but fast forwarding, now you're mentioning you and your children. So this was a little bit longer than 10 years, obviously. Can you quickly kind of bring us in your timeline quickly? All right.
Do bullet point. So basically, from the age of 4 to 20, I was in a very religious, strict sect. Then from 20 to 26, I was still like very controlled by my husband, and we'd had a few kids by then, and we were living in the city, but still practicing strict Catholicism. And then from the time I was 26 to the time I was 36, we lived in an actual cult that was, we were all living on the one property that was surrounded by barbed wire fences and padlock gates.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes.
So it was the kind of thing where you kind of brought up in a cult, and then you kind of got out, and then you were susceptible in this relationship, and then went back into a form of that.
Yeah, well, it wasn't like those 6 years I was free, so to speak. It was kind of like a sidestep. So I was living in the suburbs with my ex-husband, but still very insular within that.
Okay. And I can appreciate this. I wasn't anywhere close to a cult, but I have a pretty traditional, religious background. And there were people in my pretty orthodox background, and there were some people that were a couple of notches closer to the fringe, and some belief systems and some things like that where you could definitely be a little concerned. I'll just put it that way. And I'm not trying to polarize or sensationalize. I'm just trying to be as matter of fact as I can be. So this is really valuable. And again, I mean, your central point that just valuing people and having maybe alternative ways so that people can belong in our really fractured yet tribal society where we all have these needs to connect. Can you speak to that? Because I think that's something that we can all do to reach out to people. Earlier today, I interviewed someone who advocates something that might be a little bit related in terms of mental health, reaching out, diagnosing when it's early instead of when it's stage 2, 3, 4. I almost see this in kind of a similar way. I'm not trying to equate it, but if we reach out to people as they're starting to perhaps drift and reach out and become good humans, better humans, and do that earlier, then there's a whole lot less consequence later. What can we do to be reaching out, and what have you been doing?
Well, for me personally, firstly, I've been doing some study into these groups. So there's a various what we term new religious movements around the world in every country. Now, just because we use the term cult doesn't necessarily mean that it's evil or it's going to end in suicide or murder. So personally, what we can do is that we can have a better understanding of these groups and of their beliefs and practices. So when you do notice that your friend or family member is getting involved, or maybe has, like, as you so aptly put it before, they've got a belief system, but it's gone up a couple of notches and it's more towards the fringe, is to interact with them and talk to them and be friends with them. You don't have to agree with their actual belief system or their practices, but by being understanding of it and actually asking questions, they don't feel so weird, and then they don't end up by being really secretive and kind of going right off the rails and thinking, oh my God, so-and-so, they're asking me 20 questions, they're doing the Spanish Inquisition, they're not understanding how I'm feeling, because a lot of these people are seekers. They're seeking to fill a void within. Now, if we can actually be understanding and be helpful, and this is not just beforehand, but this is also after people come out, because that's when I personally found it very difficult, because people would ask me where I came from, and because the town that I was living in, the cult group is on one side of this defence town. So obviously you have defence coming in and out, and the school that the children were going to, they were a lovely school, very supportive and helpful. Now, people would ask me, oh, how long have you been here? Because they assumed that I was part of defence, or my husband was, so that I'd only just moved there. And it became increasingly difficult not to talk about 10 years of my life. And because I was embarrassed and I was humiliated, because I had never wanted to move there in the first place. I was forced to by my ex-husband. Now, the thing is that when I started talking about it, I felt very ashamed and very humiliated, and I didn't know how to go about actually talking about it. But then I found that people were more supportive than I thought, and that I had expected. And in meeting other, cult survivors or people who have come out of new religious movements or strict kind of controlled groups, I have found a similar theme. They feel really embarrassed to talk about it, and therefore it makes it very difficult to make connections in the world, to make friends, and ultimately to get jobs and move on. And so for me, I like to be that connecting person to say, hey, don't look at these people as being weird. They've actually got quite a few talents and gifts that they have learned through their experience, and it can actually be transformed and used in a workspace.
I am just a little silent, because I'm thinking of a lot of different things and different connections of different groups. I mean, I'm thinking about anybody who is in a major transition in life. I'm thinking about maybe military people who become civilians, and there's a new culture. I'm thinking about people who are incarcerated, rightfully or wrongfully, and now they're free. And it's like, what do they do
Yes.
now?
Yes.
Claire, where I live here in the United States, one county over, I can drive up the road and 20 minutes later, I'm in Amish country where they don't use electricity. And some of the young people don't want to be part of that community anymore. And so they have to make up for a real lack of education many times and transition back into the modern world. So I think a lot of the lessons that we get from your TEDx talk are really very, very applicable in that slightly broader sense. Is this stuff that you think about as well?
Oh, absolutely. Look, I've been contacted by women, especially all around the world, who have seen my TEDx talks, and they're just like, thank you so much for speaking out, because you're an inspiration in being able to tell the world, explain to the world what it's like to be behind closed doors or behind barbed wire fences and then to come out. And you're so right. It can be the military as well. It can be, and I mean, I have 2 sons in the military. It can be those who are incarcerated and coming out. It's that in-between crack where you're stepping out and you're feeling really shaky and you don't know. And I mean, I can literally think of that now, you know, how awkward I was socially, how difficult it was for me to make conversation, to even know what to wear when invited to a barbecue. You know, or I'm out to even having coffee with someone, you know, I so desperately wanted to connect and I found it so difficult. It was really, really hard.
I'm just thinking, you know, Talk Universe in one word, curiosity. I think if we can employ curiosity and 2 words, this is a little bit of a training term or psychological thing, but appreciative inquiry, which basically means to have a really curious mindset, not to judge, and just ask questions and really, really appreciate that the person is interacting with you no matter what they say, and really practice not judging and not reacting, but just really welcoming and making that person welcome. I think that there's some simple ways to really put into practice what Claire has learned. And I mean, we didn't even get into how did you survive after you left your family structure, and you know, and with I believe you had somewhere around 8 or 9 children, if I remember correctly from your talk. So this wasn't just you. This is lessons for especially women everywhere who are in those kinds of difficult situations. I bet it's just been an amazing encouragement to them, as well for you to hear back from them. Can you tell us, before we pivot over to the Blitz round, can you give us just a case study or 2?
Well, for me, when I left the cult, I was 36 and I had 8 children, age 16 down to 2. And so it's been a real, for me, like that has really been a real touch point for other women as well, because they've said, you know, like if you can do it with 8 children and totally turn your life around, well, then I can too. And that's what I have been able to teach and what I do teach. And, you know, like I was just conversing with a lady this morning who left a very strict insular group only a couple of years ago. She's got young children, and I've been able, like, she hadn't seen any of my TEDx talks, actually. She'd seen another interview that I'd done. She said she was halfway through the interview and she thought, I have to find this girl. She is talking my talk. And she connected with me and we spoke on the phone, and she said, you are the first person that actually says, I hear you, I validate you, you understand what I've been through. And do you know, it really makes my heart warm to know that I can do that. I can actually help people, and I love doing it. I absolutely do.
Well, we are enjoying this talk with Claire Ashman. She is a 4-time TEDx talker. Her talk that we're talking about is called Lessons from a Cult Survivor. And we're going to pivot over to you, Talk Universe, in just a moment for the Blitz round. And we're back with Claire Ashman. It is time for the Blitz round. I'm going to ask you a series of either-or questions related to the preparation and performance of your recent 4 TEDx talks. Are you ready, Claire?
Absolutely. Go for it.
All right. First off, were you invited or did you apply?
I applied for 3 and then got asked for the 4th.
What's your advice for those of us out there, the masses of us that are trying to get accepted right now?
Be true to you and talk about what you know, and make sure you do good preparation.
Yeah. And when you get up to speak and prepare, are you a memorizer, improviser, or a blender, Claire?
I'm a blender in a way where for me, I tend to use bullet points in my head and then expand on those, and I know what I'm going to expand on. So that's what I tend to do.
Have you been a opener, closer, or in between?
I'm very open when I talk. I like doing that. You know, I think
Well,
if you are
were
open,
you first? I mean, were you first? Were you last, or were you in between? Is what I mean. And you've done 4 of these, so you've probably done all 3.
Actually, no. Oh. I have been.
Where do they normally put you?
They've put me early afternoon and then second to last.
Okay, so they put you right in the middle.
Yes, and look, the second to last, if you're last or second to last, it makes it really hard to enjoy the rest of the day. Oh, yeah. So, I prefer, I wouldn't like to be an opener, but I'd like to be in the morning.
Yeah. Well, Claire tells the truth, because I was a closer. I was all the way last, and the guy a couple before me sold like 20 million books 2 years prior. I was like, have him close. He'll keep the people in the room. But they wanted me to close. So go figure. What's your advice to those people who are second to last, Claire?
Oh, God.
You might have heard it right there.
Look,
try not to be second to last.
The thing is, it depends on the organisers. Like, I mean, for me, with my last one, which is not out yet, should be soon, but they had me second to last for a reason. It ended up that they had 2 sessions. Normally you have to be, the audience has to be there for the whole day, but this time they made it a morning session and an afternoon session. The afternoon session sold out before the morning session because of me, and I was really. And I mean, so they put me second to last, and there were so many people
in the room.
Yeah,
they keep the people in the room. If they came because of you, if they put you first, then everybody leaves at the first break. Is how these things work. So
that's it. Yeah,
that's why it's so important when you get accepted. You got to play by the rules. Try to be the best speaker. Play nice with others, and try to help the whole team out. So good for you. Good for you, Claire. Can you just comment? I mean, I think it's pretty evident. So it's almost like a no-brainer or a dumb question of me to ask you, the power of the vehicle of the TEDx talk to share your authentic truth and your story. Do it in a way that you got this wonderful YouTube vehicle of the TEDx YouTube channel where millions and millions of people are watching these talks. What did that do for you way back to the first talk that you ever gave?
Well, see, for me personally, I love the audience. I love giving talks where there's audience participation. Obviously, there's not audience participation when you give a TEDx talk, like as in them asking questions, but the warmth and the acceptance that you feel from the audience. Like, I mean, with my Norwich talk, I got a standing ovation, and that absolutely made me cry. And then for my 4th talk, which was just in August in Melbourne in Australia, I feel that was my best talk ever. And the audience was so supportive and warm and understanding. And I guess I revealed more of myself in that talk. And for me, it's really helped me to be able to help more people and bring what I do out into the open. And I did release my first memoir. It's called Lessons of a Cult Survivor, and I self-published that in August, and that is available on Amazon for anybody that wants to read the full story.
Oh, that's excellent. So if we don't already have the link, we will put that in the show notes. We've been enjoying this conversation and actually this blitz round with Claire Ashman. Her talk is called Lessons from a Cult Survivor. You can find out more about Claire at claireashman.com. bethetalk.com. And yes, I see the link for the book right there. We will have that on our show notes page at Be The Talk. So you can go to bethetalk.com, watch Claire's talk on the link, connect with Claire. And we're going to be right back in just a moment with Claire Ashman for the final word of advice. And we're back with Claire Ashman. It is time for the final word of advice.
Right. Well, final word of advice is, firstly, always be true to you. Listen to your intuition. And as you so aptly put it before, is having that appreciative curiosity about others, and the understanding as well. Just be a good listener. And I mean, that can go for anybody. And I think that we would make the world a whole better place if we could do that. I really do.
I can't agree more. And thank you so much, Claire Ashman, for carving out time in your busy schedule today to come on the talk and share your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
That's a wrap. Thank you so much, Claire.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right. Well, we're bringing Dara is back. And you, my friend, are our newest Talk alumni. So you get to, this is kind of a tradition I have. I'm going to ask you to bring Dara up to speed in terms of dealing with me and any advice for her interview. She kind of, we were about to start with Dara, and then we did a couple of tech things, and then we switched it around. So we've got you giving Dara advice on this. So what would you say?
Just keep it short and succinct, Dara.
I will try.
Well, we figured out the Facebook stuff, Dara.
I had to use my phone.
No kidding. Isn't that strange?
It worked on my phone.
All right. Well, excellent. And we've got a big hello here from episode 001, Talk alumni Lefford Fate, who is an amazing guy. He says, hello. It's so cool to have Talk alumni popping back in as they see us on their little news feeds in Facebook. So, Claire, any final words, and we'll walk you back to the green room and everything?
Look, I just really appreciate the fact that you found me and invited me on to Be The Talk. I've really appreciated the opportunity to share my story. So, and I look forward to being in the alumni group, because that'll be awesome to share stories and support each other. So thank you.
That's the best place to hang out. So thanks for mentioning that, Claire. I'm going to walk you over to the green room now. And wow, great day, and shaping up to be even better evening here. So we're going to get Dara's name tag back right there. Now, Dara, you're pretty close to the screen, so I'm going to need you to kind of pull your laptop or your phone towards you so that you kind of raise up in height. And when you lean forward, that name tag is kind of covering your chin and your mouth almost. So you're fine right there. You're fine right there. And I'm going to match you right here. I'm going to do the same over here. So now we're parallel, which works just fine. So cool. Any questions for me? We're going to dive into this because we already practiced your bio. We're pretty much ready to go, right?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Well, we are live in 3, 2. We are live with Dara Padwo-Audick. Dara, are you ready to talk?
I am ready to talk.
Well, Dara Padwo-Audick is a general. I'm going to, now that I found the bio, I'm going to try this again. This is why I have my talk ninja here for these moments. Dara Padwo-Audick's genuine passion for telling impactful stories. Let me try that. Am I getting that right, Dara?
Audick.
Audick. Okay. Dara Padwo-Audick's genuine passion for telling impactful stories has taken her around the globe. Dara is the series creator of 2 nonfiction series, She's Got Grit and 650,000 Hours, and the series producer of the fiction series, Visions of Rock. Dara Padwo-Audick, welcome to the talk.
Thank you for having me.
Your talk is called Inspirations from Bhutan, and it's like I look at that, I'm thinking Bhutan, that's near Mount Everest somewhere, but it's a very, very small country. And for sure, I'm going to get it confused with Tibet or one of the other countries
You're in the
on the
right
map right
region,
there.
though.
Am I really?
Yeah, you're absolutely in the right region. It's right next to Nepal
Okay.
and right beneath Tibet. So that's why. And Nepal is the home of Mount Everest.
Not bad at all. So yeah, I
Right
love.
space.
I am a sucker for a good Mount Everest documentary, starting with the National Geographic with Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay, the Sherpa. And I think it was a 1950-ish thing. And they went back up, or maybe it was the first time, and they filmed it and they show, above the clouds in this black and white footage. It just about blew me away. You were also contracted for a period of time out there, and I think maybe something happened with the project, but that's basically the setting for your talk. And I'm going to turn it over to you at that point. Please take us behind the talk, Dara.
So it's really been a process. I did that talk after my first trip to Bhutan. I've actually been back since then.
Okay.
And Bhutan is the same and it's changed. But I became interested in the whole Himalayan culture after doing a project for National Geographic in 1997 when I went to Nepal and I lived with a Sherpa family for a few weeks and interviewed some of the Sherpas who had gone up on Mount Everest in that tragic accident that happened that Krakauer wrote about, John Krakauer wrote about, Into Thin Air.
And this would be almost my dream job, except that it's tragic, and I know about a little bit about the controversy of the prosperous Westerners. We go over there, and then we hire these Sherpas, and that's basically the only job that you can have as a Sherpa is to bring us up and down the mountain, and then we all want to get to the top of the mountain, and then it creates a very, very, very dangerous situation. So I'm going to shut my mouth because that's about all I know, but I think this is so neat, Dara.
I had read the book, and I had been doing documentary work, and National Geographic gave me and a colleague a camera to go to Nepal and do this pre-interview so that they could do a follow-up story if it worked out. But what came out of that for me was kind of what I had a hunch about, which the Sherpas and that whole Himalayan culture that is a Buddhist culture is very connected to the earth and to spirit. And the answer to their experience on that mountain was that they had prayed to the gods in the morning before the climb, and the mountain gods told them not to climb. And the Westerners just didn't listen. So they knew before they ascended that it wasn't going to be a good situation. And unfortunately, a few of them perished, which is a very sad commentary. But what was the most interesting part of this was that just like our Native American culture in the Americas, we have kind of dismissed in our fast-paced society others who have a spiritual connection to the earth and to spirit. And so it was reawakened to me that this was a very important issue. And so I started learning more about Bhutan and then ended up going there many years later. So I was first in Nepal in 1997 and ended up in Bhutan in 2008. And what I learned in Bhutan reinforced all of the things that I had been studying about our viewpoint, especially in the West. We're very attached to things, to people. And I became very intrigued by this Buddhist philosophy of non-attachment. So much so that when I was in Nepal the first time, I ended up giving away most of my things and came home with an empty suitcase. But Bhutan has a policy, a development policy called Gross National Happiness. And it's based in 9 dimensions. And they still, to this day, practice G&H policies. And I realize, that it's not so realistic for us in the United States to be doing 9 G&H dimensions on a national level, but it's definitely something that we can be doing on a local level. And we're starting to see more of that in the US. We're starting to see places like Seattle and Vermont, and even the Happiness Summit that happens in Miami every year now. People really exploring, well, what really is happiness? What is well-being? And it's not tied to the GDP.
Yeah,
It's
for
tied
sure.
to community. It's tied to good education. It's tied to good governance. It's tied to psychological well-being and health and all of the dimensions that Bhutan has identified and that they are trying to measure within their own population. Now, they're not the happiest country on the planet by any means, but their development policy is a very interesting and forward-thinking policy for looking at the well-being of a society.
My question to you at this point, because you're talking about non-attachment and all of these beautiful things, and referencing the Native American history in the United States, which is just a horrible history. It's a tragic history, and bringing some worthy parallels right there, and the attachment that we have. I mean, you want to talk about for the ambitious billionaire, millionaire, wannabe entrepreneur, rich person, that is the ultimate status symbol, and that is the ultimate attachment for for us to go and climb Mount Everest or do something like that, symbolically and literally. And yet, it's almost antithetical to their whole philosophy. In a way. So the irony of that is not lost on me. The real question that I want to ask is who is advocating for these people, because they take
they're
their
really in a transition now.
Yeah.
I found a big difference. So the first trip was in 2008. This last trip, I went with a Danish filmmaker, Hans Wessing, and we have now 3 films on Bhutan, kingdomofhappiness.com that people can look at Vimeo on demand. But so then the second trip was in 2017, and Bhutan has changed. They're struggling. They're really struggling to keep their values and move forward in their technology and in their society, and their youth in particular, who are extremely intelligent, and who are, there's a job shortage there, and many of them leave and don't come back. So they're really in a transition. They just had an election. They're a new democracy. So they just had an election, and that election has a lot to say about a country that's in transition. But one thing I do know, and I know this from my Bhutanese friends, that because they are so deeply rooted in their Buddhism and in that Buddhist philosophy, they will transcend. They will transcend because of their non-attachment and because their belief in the innermost wisdom of all sentient beings. Ultimately, they will transcend, and I know this. How
has these trips, how have they impacted you? Obviously, you gave all your stuff away on the return trip, so you've been profoundly changed. It's obviously more than just giving your stuff away on the return trip. What was the most profound impact for you, Dara?
For me, I try to do this in my work now, and I'm not always successful, and in my life. But for me, we need to be connected to our values. And we need to understand that our values are what drive us, and that we shouldn't operate, and we're not going to be authentic if we operate from a place that's not connected to our values. And so what I see in Bhutan is that no matter what they're doing, because of their philosophy and their religion, they try to stay more connected to their values by being present, and their meditations and their prayers keep them more present, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And we've been enjoying this conversation with Dara Padwo-Audick. Her talk is called Inspirations from Bhutan. And we're going to hear more from Dara in just a moment when we pivot over to Talk Universe in the Blitz Round. It's time for the Blitz round with Dara Padwo-Audick. I'm going to ask Dara a series of either-or questions related to the preparation and performance of her somewhat recent talk. I believe it's a couple of years old at this point, which is somewhat fresh, and it's all good. So, Dara, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. First question. Were you invited to speak or did you apply?
I was invited by some friends who were setting up a first TEDx at Lizard Creek.
And where is Lizard Creek? Because I saw that. That's the only Lizard Creek talk that I have seen. Is that a neighborhood? What is Lizard Creek?
It's a neighborhood in North Carolina. It was a beautiful place. And the Lizard Creek community was just beyond generous. Were all of the TEDx speakers really wonderful people.
Wonderful. Dara, are you a memorizer? Are you an improviser? Or are you a blender?
I'm definitely a blender. Very much so a blender.
What's a tip, tool, or technique that helped you?
Because I'm a filmmaker, I try to visualize things in images. And I actually wrote, this was funny. I actually wrote down a couple of the bullet points inside my hand at first because I was so anxious, but I never really looked at my hand. What was more helpful to me were the images. So I created an image around a concept. And then when I would think of the image, it would remind me about what I was going to say.
Which is a great way to do PowerPoints. Don't do the bullet points, do images, and then that's kind of how we all operate. So good for you. Dara, were you an opener? Were you a closer, or were you in between?
I was a closer, and you know what? That was awesome.
You like being a closer?
It was. I felt very fortunate to be a closer.
Yeah. Well, so did I. I mean, when I don't know about you, when they told me I was going to be a closer, I had already prepared a lot, but I ratcheted it even higher once I found out I was going to be a closer. Was that similar for you?
It makes the day longer because you're watching everybody, but it also gives you a chance to change things if you feel like you need to change them. And then the other thing is that I felt like in the end, because I was talking about inspiration and I was talking about my own inspiration, and I was really striving to inspire other people about thinking about their own lives and what is valuable for them. I felt like they appreciated it at the end, that it was a good way to close. I got a great reception at the end. It was very nice.
Awesome. What was this is the cut for time question. What was the most painful part of your talk that you had to cut out for time?
Yeah. So I showed part of a video clip and I wanted to show the whole thing, and that would have taken it way, way over time, but I would have loved to have been able to show the whole thing.
Here's my question for you as a filmmaker. What's easier for you? What's less egregiously painful for you? I guess I'll phrase it that way. Cutting from your TED Talk or cutting from one of your films? Cutting
from one of my films. It's more painful. Those are like my babies.
Yeah. but similar. I mean, you understand. I mean, you got time is time and priority is priority, and it is what it is. My last question for you, Dara, what was the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened during or right before you spoke?
Oh my gosh. Now I have to remember. Nothing felt strange. What was unexpected was the generosity, the level of generosity of this community. They hosted all of the speakers at their homes for dinners.
Oh my.
So we spent the entire weekend there. They just went all out, and the other thing that was, for me, it was rewarding, was meeting the other speakers and hearing their stories and talking to them about what meant, the most to them about being there, and their journeys. So there were no surprises per se, but some really nice moments that just made you feel good to be there.
Well, we've been enjoying this blitz round with Dara Padwo-Audick. Her talk is called Inspirations from Bhutan. You can go to our show notes page to get the link to that. I believe she said Vimeo on demand, so I'm going to be checking it out for sure. You go to bethetalk.com. We will have a link there. We will also have a link to Dara's website, creativestrategies.tv, creativestrategies.tv. And we're going to be back with Dara Padwo-Audick in just a moment for the final word of advice. It's time for the final word of advice with Dara Padwo-Audick. What is it?
For the speakers, people writing their own TED Talks, being themselves. First of all, practice. You can't just go. You really do have to practice, and practice in front of other people so they can give you feedback. That's really important.
Dara, thank you so much for joining us on the talk today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
It always is. And that's a wrap. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We've got all kinds of little likes and loves and reactions. I think we have a little, somebody made someone chuckle here. We got a little laugh emoji. That's awesome. We're going to bring Claire back up here. Claire, this is pretty cool, huh?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I love your story, Dara. I really do. I'm going to look you up and look up your talk and what you do, because I totally agree that the happiness, being connected to self and the happiness has more to do with being rich per se. It makes you more rich than owning things and having lots of money.
Well, and I was really intrigued by your talk as well, and now I have to watch your talk.
Well, I've got 3 there. The 4th one should be up. I'm not sure when it's coming up, but it should be up soon.
Well, because I also feel like, I was talking about this idea of values, the values that you were challenged, that you couldn't express your values in those situations. That must have been very difficult. So I think you're a very brave person.
Oh, thank you.
As do I.
Thank you. Well, I have to say, honestly, like I mentioned in my TEDx Melbourne talk, which is the one that's not out yet, is that I spent 30 years being told what to think, what to say, how to act, how to dress, and it was totally going against me. And then so it took me 40 years to find the cheeky 4-year-old, the girl that was adventurous and curious and, everything like that. And, it's you do have to be true to you. You really do.
Well, bravo.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, hey, if you're watching this and it's still live, feel free to share this. If you're watching this video and it's not live anymore, you can still comment, you can still share. You want to wiggle your finger like the creepy kid from that movie, The Shining, over the share button to help us defeat that Facebook algorithm that seeks to suppress and keep these ideas back. Unless we pay thousands or millions of dollars for that. And we've already got these great, amazing TEDx talks. Now you know the backstory, and now we can really help you be the talk. If you want to get on that stage, grab hold, as Dara and Claire have done, of this amazing vehicle that helps you broadcast your idea we're spreading to the world. You got to get accepted. You got to get on that stage and be stage worthy. So I'm going to thank everyone for joining us, and then we're going to slip offline here. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.